Hi everyone, and welcome back to Homestuck, Homestuck 2's bonus stories. I'm sorry. I was trying to find a good one for that. Oh gosh. But yes, we caught up on all of Catnapped, and now we're on to the one part, it seems, of the Treatise on Representational Democracy. It sounds like it's gonna be a drag, but I don't know. Could be interesting. It was done over a year ago and hasn't been updated since, and I don't know. I'm curious to see what it's gonna be like. It could be more interesting than we'd think. It might only be 1 page long. I don't know. Hopefully it's no longer than 10 minutes, though. I'm hoping that this place isn't echoey. I just realized that after recording the last one, I'm like, is it echoey? I'm not sure. I haven't listened to the audio file yet. But yeah, excitement. But okay, let's get this show on the road. A Treatise of Representational Democracy Part 1. Oh gosh, it's a book. Click. A picture book for young parliamentarians. Oh my gosh. The mayor! It's the mayor! Chapter 1. Once upon a time, by the side of a river, there lived a simple farmer. His work was simple. His home was simple, his work was simple, he was simple too. Simple life was simple for a simple farmer. The simple life was good. However, you're not gonna say that he's like an ex-soldier? The land in which the simple farmer lived had long been fought over by 2 kings, horrible bad kings. They were also very angry kings, for why else would they have fought so much? 2 horrible kings fought over the land for so long that nobody could remember what had come before the fighting. It seemed as though war was all the land had ever known. It seemed as though war was all the land had ever meant for. 2 things. 1, don't do the White King dirty like that. And 2, that is the entire point of your civilization, though, was to have a war. You guys being different chess pieces on a board. Sorry. Okay, it seemed as though war was all the land ever known, blah, blah, blah. 2 horrible, bad, extremely angry and nasty kings did not care for the land as the simple farmer did. Eventually, the fighting destroyed his simple life and his simple home. You forget that the White Army was fighting for... Uh-oh. The internet's basically decided, Jen, we hate you. Go die in a fire. And I'm like, why would you do this? While we're waiting for this thing to finish loading, please. Okay. But yeah, the Prospitans were fighting for, Skya to keep it from being destroyed and for the new world? Why are we villainizing? Oh gosh. And besides, we already... Oh, dang it, what the internet is gone! No! How could you? How could you do this to me? How could you? There we go, it finally came back. Woo! That's not good. Okay. The simple farmer decided he could not remain a simple farmer any longer. The 2 kings must be stopped, but the incredible power which they possessed, which ruined his home and his simple life. The power must be destroyed. The quest, which seemed simple at first, was in fact not simple at all. Before long, the farmer was forced to leave the land he loved behind. Serenity. Carcat and Day. Look at them. Oh, it's so cute. However, despite many hardships, he did not grow sad or weary. Along the way, he discovered a new purpose. He made friends with curious creatures and allied with powerful gods. He discovered the light of democracy and undertook the solemn mayoralty of Cantown. The quest was difficult, but in time, he succeeded. And where once there was nothing, a new land was born. It's literally Earth again. The gods entrusted this land to the mayor and his friends, who would build a society and look after it until they returned. There was no fighting, no war, and no horrible, angry, nasty kings either. Instead, there was a lot of work to be done. First, homes had to be constructed, for how would people live without homes? Then, crucial infrastructure must be established, for how would a new growing society function otherwise? Next, a robust and comprehensive educational system must be devised, for how else would the new people learn? The problems seemed endless, difficult, and challenging, but the mayor and his friends solved them all. But there was one final problem that was more difficult and challenging than all the others. Who would govern this world and how? This problem was bigger and more difficult than any the mayor had faced before. Is there not any picture here? Oh gosh. The problem was unfortunately compounded by the fact that when the topic of fair and effective governance was broached, most sparing intellects immediately assumed a certain posture, not one of surrender or admiration, but of abject and interminable boredom. This fact makes it hard to treat such a fascinating subject with the proper amount of attention and enthusiasm, but we shall do our best to understand regardless. The interim government established to rule Earthsea in the Creator's absence consisted of 3 main branches, each with its own roles and responsibilities. The legislative branch was a democratically elected parliament known simply as the House. The House is divided into 4 quarters, one for each kingdom, human, troll, Carpathian, and consort, and each of the quarters consisted of equal number of seats. The occupants of the seats participated in internal House votes to determine the planet's laws and so on. Various political factions within each kingdom veiled for election in their representative quarters, with the seat allocations being determined proportionately through planet-wide general elections. An important rule which was influenced... Oh gosh. Water break. Are we just explaining the U.S. House of Representatives? But it's fantasy now? Okay. An important rule which influenced the composition of the House was that the number of the seats available to be filled within a given quarter of a general election was based on voter turnout at the representative kingdom. If every eligible citizen in the kingdom voted, then 100% of the seats in that kingdom's quarter were available for allocation. On the other hand, if only half the population of the kingdom were to vote, then only 50% of the seats would be used. Since no kingdom wished to be underrepresented in the House, one consequence of this rule was that the general elections on Earthsea tended to have very high levels of participation. On the happy occasions where the maximum number of seats were allocated in all 4 quarters, this was known as a full house. Lol, that's funny because Carpathians and board games and card games. Okay. Another consequence of the House's unique structure was that it was practically impossible for any political party to have a majority in the House. A single faction would hope to acquire at the most 1/4 worth of total seats. Hence, coalition governments were the norm, and a huge amount of corporation... I can't read. This is boring me to tears. Okay, let me try this again. Another consequence of the House's unique structure is that it was practically impossible for any political party to have a majority in the House. A single faction could hope to acquire at most 1/4 worth of the total seats. Hence, coalition governments were the norm, and a huge amount of cooperation between parties and 4 House quarters more generally was needed to get things done. The House quickly evolved its own unique internal culture, as the ever-shifting body of elected officials worked tirelessly within its walls. A great deal of House-specific terminology and slang began to develop. For example, if a party took the vast majority of seats from their kingdom, one might remark that they had given no quarter. On the other hand, if the seat distribution in the House changed very suddenly at an election, officials might heard complaining of the dreaded royal flush. Friendly and fair behavior was determined through a set of guidelines known as the House Rules. Most of these rules dictated a basic level of etiquette and decorum, i.e., thou shalt not move thy neighbor's seat without asking, thou shalt not make fun of anyone for wearing an unusual hat, etc. The complete House Rules would take too long to list here, despite how interesting such an exercise would be, but particular attention should briefly be given to the consort kingdom. I'm still amazed that you gave consorts the right to rule. Though technically they fall under the Harkness test. I shouldn't have said the Harkness test. There's probably a better way to put that. But it's like, because we're talking about governance and not should you screw them. And that's the Jack Harkness test. My brain is scrambled. It's kind of hot in here. Okay. Without going into too much detail, consorts all tend to have significantly shorter lifespans than the other citizens of Earthsea. Aww, because they're animals. Because of this, a large number of house rules were dedicated to describing exactly what to do if a seat was vacated mid-term due to the death of its occupant. While the House wrote Earthsea's laws, the responsibility for interpreting and enforcing them would fall onto the second branch of government. The delivery of justice, the DOJ, was founded to keep the peace and arbitrate in all legal matters, and its members were the brave soldiers of God in this righteous crusade. They also took care of the mail. First of all, capital letter of the God, and also mail. It's all capitalized, yay! Overseen by the postal minister, PM. The members of the DOJ carried out the duties of both legal scholars and delivery workers. A justice by mail court system handled all forms of litigation or dispute. All the triplicate and mailed first class bail was said to be paid using the equivalent value in postage stamps. I love it. Okay, the DOJ's remit wasn't limited to questions of simple legality, though. In the interest of ensuring a just and equitable society, the delivery became an effective civil service, responsible for such things as infrastructure, housing, work and pensions, diplomacy, welfare. Of course, such a large organization needed systems to ensure that justice was carried out inside its walls, as well as the public sphere. That's where the union came in. I'm surprised we need unions, and that we need welfare. In this perfect utopian society. The Parcel Luggers Union, PLU, remains the single greatest triumph of mayoral-era civilization, a collective of millions all arranged with a common purpose under the leadership of the Plutarchs, a true magnificent workers' advocacy, all democratic, all plutocratic, nothing like it will ever be seen again. While a truly astonishing feat of collective organization, the DOJ was not without its problems. In its heyday, delivery was even more monstrously complex than the House, to the point where several major political movements of reform and reorganize it were established. The political structuralists argued that a more robust internal framework would make the whole thing more efficient, while the postmodernists, oh, that's a good one, campaigned for the entire system to be transferred to a digital medium. Each had only limited success. I'm sorry. That's so funny. That was funny. Okay. The last branch of government was the mayor's office. While its importance was technically somewhat lesser, nevertheless, the office of mayor still fulfilled a very crucial function. And of course, in time, it would prove itself to be the most important function of all. Though the House was representative in a literal sense, and the DOJ operated purely in the interest of the people, still there was a need for citizens of Earth to feel embodied in an individual. They wanted to feel seen. And so the inevitable task of maintaining public morale in a fully integrated socialist utopia fell to the mayoralty. Oh, socialist utopia. So something that existed purely in people's heads. Gosh. Help us, please. Anyway. Appointed by the people directly, the mayor acted as a ceremonial figurehead for Earth in its early days. A brave champion of light of democracy, the mayor enthused the masses with convivial spirit and inspired them in their common purpose to build a better world for the people who would come after them. It was to be no easy task, but it was to this task that our hero found himself best suited, for who that remained on Earth could inspire a greater legacy. And besides, the job is quite literally made for him. So governing Earthsea was a complicated affair and only became more convoluted over time. But the really important thing was that, despite all this complexity, it worked. It really worked. At one point, a whole field of mathematics was developed just to explain the intern government worked so well, and they ended up proving it categorically. It was theoretically perfect. Theoretically. And for a time, it was literally perfect too. The world was young, people were happy, Earthsea was a paradise planet in the making, the gods couldn't have asked for better. One day, the mayor looked out his window at all the perpetually blue sky and paused. It was many years since he had stood on the battlefield and looked at the clouds, which had once offered visions of great and terrible things. He wasn't a simple farmer any longer. He was building something better. But as he gazed out over the city, something made his carapace shiver. A bitter chill came over him, and for a moment, though he could not yet understand why, the clouds above seemed like they were biding their time, waiting patiently for another pretentious moment, or perhaps after telling the future for so long, they were simply curious. Maybe they too wondered what it would look like when everything fell apart. Wait, so the sky and clouds still work? But we don't have Skya anymore. You know what? I don't care. Both this was ridiculous, but also it was fun. I love the the postmaster one where I'm like, yes, go PM, you rule queen. Oh gosh, but that was a bit of a mouthful, and that's only chapter 1. Goodness gracious me. They didn't create any more chapters after this, probably because no one was interested in seeing how the rest of the world. They're like, we don't care, we don't care. You literally didn't care either, because you totally skipped 5,000 years of creating the world's civilization just to have our kids put in where the technology was available. And I'm like, oh, goodness gracious me. Okay. But yeah, I guess that's all for this one for now. I guess next time we'll be going into Diamonds, Dames, and Dads. Looking forward to it. I hope it's good. I heard it's good, so it better be good. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you all next time. Bye!
Hey there. Consider becoming a patron, just like the phenomenal Bleed Red, Alexander Madeline, Uranium Coffee, Ryan Nelson, Runda, and Cloudy Days.